podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. I'm your host, Simone Sweeney, and in this new series, Getting Started as a Coach, I'm excited to introduce you to experts and coaching thought leaders who will share their passion and experience to help new and aspiring coaches get the insight and information they need to understand the industry, make more informed decisions, and successfully start out in the world of coaching. In today's episode of Getting Started as a Coach, I chat to Mulrooney and Victoria Liu. We will introduce the three main global coaching bodies, the Association for Coaching, the ICF, and the EMCC, and discuss how these organizations provide valuable resources for a coach, how to choose the best fitting organization for you, and how affiliation with these coaching bodies can influence your practice and your coaching. Ina is an AC-accredited professional executive coach, facilitator, and senior HR consultant with a broad range of experience. She has significant expertise in leadership coaching, professional development, as well as enabling effective teams. Ina is a lecturer in coaching within the National College of Ireland, and she's a long-standing member of both the Association for Coaching and the EMCC. Victoria is a coach and mentor, accredited as a master executive coach. After more than 20 years working globally in the financial service industry, she became a coach. She is a postgrad in applied positive psychology and neuroscience and is a regular coaching lecturer. Victoria has been involved with all three of the bodies, the AC, the ICF, and the EMCC. Welcome to you both, Ina and Victoria. Between us, I think we'll have a really rich dialogue on the coaching organizations today.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you.
So before we dive into our discussion, I thought it would be helpful to read out the mission statements of each of the coaching bodies to give our audience a brief introduction to them. And you can find this on their websites, and this will also be in the show notes. So the Association for Coaching is leading independent and not-for-profit professional body dedicated to promoting best practice and raising the awareness and standards of coaching worldwide. Our purpose is to inspire and champion coaching excellence, to advance the coaching profession and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organizations, and society. The International Coaching Federation, or ICF, is the leading global organization for coaches and coaching. ICF is dedicated to advancing the coaching profession by setting high standards, providing independent certification, and building a worldwide network of trained coaching professionals. And last but not least, we have the EMCC, and that is the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. It exists to develop, promote, and set the expectation of best practice in mentoring, coaching, and supervision globally for the benefit of society. Our vision is to be the go-to body in mentoring, coaching, and supervision. So as we can hear from those mission statements from each of the three bodies, a lot of common themes: acting as a governing body of expert coaches, identifying and supporting professional standards and behavior, but also creating a community for coaches. So I'm sure we'll get into the meat of that and your experience of it shortly, but I'd love to start with asking you both how you define coaching. So Victoria, we'll start with you. What does coaching mean for you?
That's a very good question. For me, it's very much around creating a safe space for my coachee to be able to explore whatever challenges that they think that they are having at the moment. And my role is to support them to explore these opportunities and opening up options so that they can access things that previously they may not feel they have. I don't believe it's particularly directive. I think coaching can sometimes be conceived as something like a sports coach where you're told what to do and march this way, etc. I see it as we innately had all the solutions we need. And I'm a bit like a Lady Yoda that comes around and help you find the key to unlock that for you.
Fantastic. I know. What's coaching for you?
That's lovely, Victoria. That idea of space really resonates with me as well. And I think I use the language around coaching space all the time. Sometimes it's referred to as a container, but I like the idea of space because it just pushes that out a little bit. And I think it's about creating space, for thinking and holding space for emotion, and then attuning space for insight, broadening out that space for kind of deeper understanding. And I think crucially, particularly in organizational coaching, it needs to be a non-performative space where someone can be however they are that day in that session, and we'll figure it out, together. And the final part for me is, what do we do as coaches to bridge the space from the session back into their lived experience of their roles in their organizations, the systems they're trying to navigate. So I think that's where the outcome focus comes in for us as coaches. And the supportive environment is crucial, and the new thinking is crucial. But unless we're building in the mechanisms where we can influence their lived experience of their roles or their organizations, then the value doesn't leave the session. So I think that's probably my philosophy in a nutshell.
Yes, implementation and practical aspect is so critical. You can have the best session and you walk out without actually having a plan, and that would not be the best outcome.
Thank you both for sharing your definition of coaching and how you approach that. There are certainly many common themes within that, not the least of which is the importance of a trusting, reflective relationship between yourself as the coach and the client. So I'd love to turn to the organizations and your experiences with them at this point. So Ina, will you lead us off and share what your experience with the coaching organizations has been?
Sure. I've been a member of the Association for Coaching and of the EMCC since 2016. And more recently, over the last 2 years, I suppose, I've been exploring ICF accreditation and completing mentor coaching, which is part of something they value highly as part of that process, but I haven't progressed that further as of yet. So I think, professionally, I feel most aligned to the Association of Coaching, and as you mentioned, that's where my accreditation as a professional executive coach is from currently.
Fantastic. And Victoria, what's your experience to date of the three coaching bodies?
They're incredibly different in my view. I find it's a bit like a place to hang out, and each of them have a different vibe. You go to one that likes to serve you tea and coffee, whereas another one serve you hot cold drinks, and it's a very different environment for me. I initially started because my own coach was affiliated with one of them and recommended it, and I went along and sort of get some first-hand experience of what it was like. And for me, it's an environment where I really get to network and get community support, learn from each other, and really grow from that experience. And each of them is different. And also location-wise, we have different chapters for each of the associations. And the chapters would have a chapter head that would brings it to life. That would be almost completely incomparable, in my opinion. So I personally enjoy all three, but for very different reasons.
So, Victoria, you just mentioned there that there was a regional consideration to be had with the different chapters. How do the organizations either represent different specialities or regions?
For each of them, they have obviously their headquarters that does the centralized function. But then some of the regions, for example, ICF would have a UK chapter and Asia chapter. And so they would have different location that is then run by a particular head of the chapter that is located there, which means that you may have opportunities to network and socialize physically in the same location, and also share challenges that you may otherwise have experienced that is different, it has the nuance of that particular location. And I find that some of the richness of it comes from sharing and learning from other chapters. For example, with EMCC, although the name shows that it's historically is very much European-centric, but I've actually met a lot of Middle Eastern and Asian counterparts that brings me knowledge in their domain that you otherwise wouldn't have thought so, because the name did not actually indicate it initially. So that's how I feel the chapters. And you don't have to join the local chapter. You can just stay in the central function. But I certainly find some of the richness of it comes from the local chapters.
And Ina, what's been your experience?
Yeah, just building on that point first, I suppose for me, a lot of my work is digital and virtual coaching now, and the clients are, positioned globally. So it's actually lovely to come back to a a local community sometimes, given that your clients aren't always in the same location as you. And I think as digital platforms for delivery of coaching become more and more part of our sector, that idea of some face-to-face contact, some in-person events within the network can be a lovely part of it. I think in your question around specialties and focus, reflecting on that, in my experience, I think that the ICF is more generally recognized in the US than the Association for Coaching or the EMCC. So I suppose for new coaches starting out, if that region is generating a lot of their work, that might be worth considering further. And in my exposure to the ICF, I was really impressed with the extent to which they've built out their diversity, equity, and inclusion dimension of their work, and it's very clear that the emphasis is on coaching the who as well as the what in their philosophy. And I think it's very important to them to hold the multiple identities of clients that may emerge during the work. So I was really impressed with that in my exposure with them. I do feel, and going back to Victoria's point about directive or not, my sense is that philosophically the ICF is strongly non-directive in its philosophy, and you'll see that as a key indicator across multiple competency descriptors when you look at them. And I think that's really core to its vision and its values for coaching. And I have found that challenging on occasion in the corporate context and organizational coaching, where maybe the context and the expectations of clients, either corporate clients or the individual coachees, may differ and may require you to move along a continuum sometimes a little bit in helping them explore their challenges. For me, the AC specialty is in making its solution focus explicit. And I think it does that effectively in having the coach track and the executive coach track, which recognizes the complexity of navigating organizational systems, and with its additional competencies that it has. And because that's my context, I kind of appreciate that. And I know, Victoria, you probably have more insight on this than I do, but I think the academic emphasis, the research focus of the EMCC is really rich as a specialty. And we see that reflected in the emphasis it places on coach specialist training, which is significantly more for some of the accreditation levels than perhaps some of the other associations. So yeah, I think there's a mix of focus, and just as you explored it, you figure out a little bit of the emphasis in each one that might add value to you as a coach and how you're developing your practice.
Yeah, I definitely echo that on the EMCC front. Being a bit of a geek myself, I am part of the Global CPD Center of Excellence Committee. So we look extensively into a lot of research around what is best practice for continuous professional development. How are the different ways of learning evolving, and how can we ensure that different coaches may appreciate different ways of developing their skills and creating much more inclusive frameworks that allow them to do so. And the amount of research all of us contributed towards our combined PhDs and etc. was just mind-boggling, and it's something that we were truly passionate about as a mission. So if you are interested in going really deep into various topics that are resonating for you, I do find it's like you're put into the biggest library that's possible for you to learn and explore while having that practical application. So it's very different, I do feel, and I do agree with you on some of the other comments related to the other two as well. It's really difficult in terms of deciding on your expertise when you just started being a coach. So you don't really know sort of like which football club should you join, right? Some of us has already chosen because we were born into it. But when it comes to something like a profession like this, I would strongly encourage coaches to get invited into some of the free events, open events, and just to try it out and see if you like the vibe, if you like the way they learn and they approach different aspects of development. In terms of the spectrum as well, EMCC also look at mentoring as well as coaching. So certainly on the directive aspect, there's a big, long spectrum of it. And they see it as two very distinctive skill set and practices. And I find that in the corporate world, and also certainly for new joiners that comes into the business environment, they really appreciate having a mentor slash advisor more than they wanted a coach. So from that regard, some of the different membership would be able to support you in a slightly different way.
So you've both spoken to some of the elements to consider when looking at an organization in terms of maybe the research specialisms of the EMCC or the regional orientation of the ICF in terms of focusing on North America. And I'd love to introduce the community focus of the AC. All of them will have their areas of particular strength while having a lot of common solutions available. Are there any practical aspects that we haven't already covered that a new coach should consider when researching if an organization is a particular fit for them?
Well, I think particularly starting out, cost is a factor. It may be cost prohibitive to join more than one, at the beginning. So I think going back to what Victoria said is think about your approach to CPD in particular, and look at the member, non-member costs of some of the offerings, the webinars, the difference between attending as a member or a non-member, that can offset the outlay of the membership over the course of a year.
Yeah.
So maybe exploring what the mix of offerings is, member benefit webinars like we have in the AC, things like that can make that decision easier over time if you think about it an investment over a year. So that would be something to think about. I think from a practical point of view, what I've noticed in terms of the ICF is, if you're starting out and you're thinking about that, look at whether, you've already completed an ICF accredited training. I think that's the easiest way to enter the ICF. And then when you are doing the CPD, to make sure that that's recognized by them also. For me, I've found it more difficult to align retrospectively with the ICF than I have the other two. So, but absolutely not impossible, because there's a portfolio path that you can engage in to show all of your expertise, your experience, and your qualifications in a way that matches their expectations. But it's a little bit more challenging, I think. Those are some things I think to think about. Victoria, what's your sense of that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, Ina. I think it's the school where you it depends on how you approach this particular profession, but the school where you train from usually is either affiliated with one or the other, which means that you might have access to it as a student member while you are studying, which would give you an insight as to, what sort of free training would I be getting and the support I'll be getting. You can actually spend more time in the social room to get to know this is a place that I actually like to hang out. I see it very much from a perspective of a place to belong. It's a bit like you can choose. There are so many gyms out there. Some can be really fancy, some can be really boutique-y, and some can be just very generic. You go in and do your workout. It's what you get out is what you put in. So if it's not a place you're going to enjoy hanging out, then you're not going to get fit just because you have a fancy gym membership. So I think it's really around how much you want to get involved, how much time you want to spend getting to know other members so that you can find future support and collaboration opportunities later on. Coaching, for me, the trickiest part moving from corporate to coaching is the isolation. You don't really get to have a group of colleagues like when I used to have other COOs, other business partners, other trainers and program directors you can sort of share knowledge with. It's not like there is a natural area you can just go and hang out and learn and brainstorm. So the association gives you that opportunity to find your tribe, find people that you would resonate with and can learn from. And I think from that regard, when you are choosing Some people do change membership or join more, like you said, depending on financial aspects as well as your timing and resources. But it's likely that you choose one and you build the relationship and you stick with that. So consider the longer term of what you're looking for. Do you want to get accredited? And if you do, then naturally you're more likely to choose a membership that is also aligned with the same accreditation. Because like Ina said, retrospectively trying to fit some of your experience into different criterias may become a little bit more tricky and frustrating perhaps. So it's worthwhile speaking to other coaches and see what they do and what works for them. If they were to turn back time, would they do the same? And then go from there. And don't be afraid to change either, right? You could join one club and then decide, actually, I really fancy learning from that group too. So, it's not like you suddenly, it's not a competitive sport. So I find that I know people that also are like you, Ina, as in more than one. And we go there for different reasons and meet different people and sometimes the same people.
That's an important point, Victoria, that you're making, that the organization that also fits you at a particular point may not serve you as well as another as your interests, your experience, your niche develops. And for a person who's newer to coaching, it's a consideration. It's almost as if you're going shopping and trying on different jeans until you find the pair that fit you the best.
Yeah.
And it is totally fine to change or to decide to participate with more than one, as you both say. You mentioned just there a point which may not be immediately obvious to a newer coach or someone who hasn't had an affiliation before, is that being a member or being involved with an organization, it doesn't mean accreditation. That's a separate process that is sponsored within the organization. So how important is it to understand your accreditation pathway or your future approach to accreditation before making a decision about which association to perhaps get involved with?
I think it's really helpful. Actually, I think even before you start thinking about accreditation and you're having the kind of great reflection that Victoria was talking about, if you bring it back to the competencies, I think you can say to yourself, where do I recognize myself most? Or where do I recognize who I'd like to become as a coach most? And that's probably a really good indicator of that might be my professional home. Because we're all works in progress. And I think when you look at that accreditation pathway, what it does, particularly I think for independent coaches, people who are self-employed, maybe working externally, it gives us a way to manage our careers. Just like there is accreditations or progressions in organizations that reflect a deepening expertise or a broadening of scope, that's what our accreditation pathways are. So I see them as touchstones, really motivational to continue to learn and strive to be better, because this is a journey towards mastery. So how do we do it, and how do we like where the trail is going? That's really important to say. As I'm going there, am I able to show up fully? Just like we try to enable our clients to show up fully and bring their whole unique selves. When you're engaging with a membership association, do you feel like you're showing up fully? And I think that those are some nice reflections about whether to engage. And then, from a personal point of view, Simone, the mix of your training hours, the AC places great emphasis on experience, so those decision points, when you look at your profile, which one is going to be recognized and which one is going to be valued most for where I'm coming from, from my mix of experience and training and education and interest. So exploring.
Yeah, definitely. You've hit the nail on the head. I certainly think it's the sooner you consider it, the more equipped you will be, and the more likely you would be able to find your natural home. So much of it is dependent on what do you enjoy doing. And, accreditation is a long path. I would be lying if I would say to you getting to master level is easy. So you have to really love it. You have to really want it as well. Logging your hours isn't fun. And for me, the learning is tremendous amount of joy. But the other aspects of, recording your scripts and getting it ready and so on and so forth, every single one of them expect different types of submission. And some of the education that you have would have encouraged you to do it a certain way, which may align better with one or more of the organization. For example, like what Ina was saying before, the non-directive aspects of coaching for ICF, is that going to be something that would encourage you to do more of, or is it going to deter you from working in certain environment that actually would like a more directive or semi-directive styles? And if that's the case, then how would you have to adapt your coaching style in order to fit into those set criteria that you will have to meet in order for them to recognize you at that level of mastery? So there are certainly your own style, the school you learn from, the people you do it with, as well as, looking at the pathway and you go, do I want to go on this ride or do I want to go on that other ride?
I love how you use the metaphor of it being a ride, because it's fun. It's something that takes you forward and puts you in places you may not have been before. And I think you've both offered some fantastic practical considerations for choosing the organization in terms of things like the investment or a geographic affiliation where one organization is maybe more recognized by future clients and employers, as well as the much more emotive view of finding your spiritual home and a community that you connect with. And I know that will be very powerful advice on both dimensions for our listening audience today. Are there any other considerations of the more practical type that someone should consider or look for when making a decision on which to join, maybe perhaps in what that organization is going to be able to do to support that coach on their journey?
For me, learning is one of my core values, and it shows up consistently in my personal history and my work history. So I think it's really important to engage with, well, how does this organization support my learning? And when we look at the mixture of events, whether it's showing up to a local chapter coffee morning, whether it is virtual or in person, whether it's one-off webinars just to introduce us into a topic, whether it's like the AC have, or whether it's a global dialogue series like the EMCC has, whether it's signature programs where you can go deeper over time, over a number of sessions like the AC have. I think it's for me it's figuring out how does the organization support me, and also when it comes to accreditation, is there somebody who can guide me around the standards and navigate that sometimes intimidating and complex system of how do I do this? So, whether they offer accreditation support, whether they offer sessions focused on that, where they articulate how we can get you through this together. I think all of those are really good questions to ask.
Yeah, from that regard, going through the journey, going through that ride, some people like to have a lot more support. Some people like to explore their own way and choose your own adventure. I think one of the things that I found incredibly useful is when you just start, you really don't know what you like, what you would actually need until they're offered to you. And one of the things that I must say, I found it incredibly useful as a student member with AC when I started through University of Cambridge was that you get to see so much of, this is actually complimentary as part of your membership, and you can then have access to try various things. And when you're starting out, they can really save you a lot of time and money when you can try different things that is included rather than paying it yourself and realize, actually, that's not a topic I would enjoy. So I do think stuff like that really can support the journey, like Ina said. And also having sessions available for new members to ask questions and to ask more experienced members about how they can navigate and get the most value out of the membership. Certain groups provide that and others don't. So I do feel that these are something that potentially can be very useful and make the experience very different when you join. And last but not least, would the membership really promote and advocate your business? Are there room for you to be able to put your profile in there so that you can actually be seen by others when they search? They can find you easily. Potential employers might be able to cross-reference and see that you are already accredited to what level, what are your experiences, and so on. And also for other coaches to find you for opportunities where they might not be able to do everything, right? They might have businesses in a region that they want to tap into and find other coaches that can help their clients. And all three of them provide that. So those directories are incredibly useful. And I would say a lot of my clients use them extensively to check, to decide if it is a coach that they would like to work with. So those are some of the aspects that I would encourage our listeners to check out.
Just building on that, something occurred to me as you were talking, Victoria, around, the difference between input and output and how each of the associations look at that. So even for new coaches starting out, we tend to be focused on what can I, a little bit like magpies. We'd like to go and gather new tools and gather new insights and build our backpack. And then we realize it's getting a bit tiring carrying this backpack around. Maybe I should just sit with it a little bit and then start to kind of share it back out. And what are the lessons and what are the learnings? So one of the things I value about the AC, and maybe you'll have seen it from the other ones, Victoria, is that shift as you develop from focusing on input-based activities where I'm gathering and building my own repository of knowledge to output-based activities. And where can I share? Where can I volunteer or get engaged? Where can I advocate for the profession? Maybe where can I design and deliver programs? Perhaps for some, it might be migrating towards supervision of other coaches. So I think that's also a nice dimension to think about, because on this journey, we tend to go from discovering what our interests and our capabilities are, developing those, and then figuring out how we can deploy them and share them with others. That's something that occurred to me as you were speaking.
And how much they will support you on that journey, like you said in the AC, while I was looking at accreditation, how much support that was given to me. How easy was it for me to then send a questions and go, I'm preparing this aspect and I'm not entirely sure if this is what you're looking for, and to be able to get a human being to respond to you and to then support you on that journey was incredibly. It was just so much more comforting. And some other organizations is a bit more of a black hole. You send it away and you cross your fingers and you go, I hope I filled everything right. and then you hear back. So, I personally would prefer the human way all the time, but I also understand that resources are constraints. Some regions have more volunteers than other regions. So, and that's another thing. EMCC is purely volunteers. Every single person you speak to, they are volunteers. So they have a job, they are coaches, they are supervisors. Sometimes you learn a lot more about the practical aspect, but they also have a day job. Whereas ICF and AC has employees, has contractors, and therefore their sole role is to support the organization. So it's also reflected in their membership fee. What is it that you're getting out of? Because you have dedicated teams that look after certain aspects of the membership.
That's an important reflection, is to think about the value that the organization is bringing to you, but also consider how you can contribute back to the organization. As we've been speaking about them being a community that you're involved in. There's often the opportunity to get further involved, which is, a great way to build your network, to experience different coaching methodologies and leverage the expertise of those who come before, particularly for those of our listeners who are newer into the coaching industry. So that's a good nugget as well for us to think about the organizations as a two-way exchange in some instances as well. I'm curious as to whether you have found any of the associations that you have worked with over your years coaching more connected to a particular way of coaching or methodology or supervision, or are they all fairly kind of agnostic and welcoming to all comers?
My perspective that I think the ICF use of mentor coaching is a differentiator for them. And I think what that does is it really shines a spotlight on the competencies that they value. So it really brings your focus in your learning and your practice down to a very granular level around what words am I choosing to use, what space am I creating for the client, what agency am I leaving with the client in every moment of the session. So I think that's something that I've noticed as a differentiator for the ICF. I think we use that in the AC and perhaps the same in the EMCC. We use our supervision for that, and we haven't really talked about supervision yet. I think that's a crucial consideration as well, to think about how do you integrate and use and reflect on the supervision as part of the scaffolding of your coaching practice that maybe differs across.
And we will be exploring supervision in a bit more detail in the next episode. But it is a really relevant consideration for your affiliation with a coaching organization, how that vital piece of scaffolding can be supported on your coaching journey. So it's fantastic that you enter that into this conversation because it is super relevant. Victoria, would you like to build on that?
No, I think I actually captured all of that. It's interesting, and I'd love to hear more about the supervision and how the other coaches share that. So I look forward to your next episode. I personally love supervision. It's one of the places I learn and grow the most. It's like you having your own coaching environment that is, I strongly believe that good coaches have coaches. And having coaches and supervisors really help you with developing your own coaching practice and also the well-being of a coach. How well are you looking after yourself so that you can better look after your clients? It's one of those things where it's very, very predominant in the psychotherapy practices, but it's a lot less common for those who may be starting out to actually invest in having really good supervisory support that would really take you up the next level and build the confidence as well as the comfort that you are doing the best you can, creating that safe space.
I think that's so important. If we are going out there to advocate and support growth in our clients and the learning in our clients, I think it's really important that we are deeply invested in our own. And I think supervision is a way to do that. And we also know, one of my areas of interest is around resilience and well-being, as you were saying, Victoria. And we know that learning is a protective factor for resilience and creates a buffer in terms of our stress responses. So I think having the support of that supervision, and we won't eke into the next episode. We'll want to be back, Simone. But I think having that is incredibly important. And I think I know we're very interested in supporting newer coaches as well. And I suppose an invitation or something to reflect on from my point of view would be the benefit of group supervision early in career, where not only do you benefit from your own learning and cases that you might be bringing, but you're deepening your exposure to other people's and building that safe community, as you said, is really powerful.
Yes, and also at a lower cost. So when you're starting out, it is so, if some new coaches were to say to me, I can't afford supervision, well, maybe not one-to-one, but you certainly can afford group supervision. And the return on investment is immeasurable.
Absolutely. Those are great tips and an important thing for any coach, not just our newer coaches to be reflecting on. I'm going to ask you both to cast your mind back to when you were first getting started as coaches so long ago, and when you were affiliating or joining your first association. Was there one particular thing that was very helpful for you that first association engagement gave to you or your coaching practice, or maybe even something less tangible in terms of your confidence or your network?
I was actually qualified a number of years before I made that decision. I qualified as a coach first back in 2006, and I moved from a corporate HR or business partner role into becoming self-employed and building up my practice on the side as I did some consulting work. And I think as I built up those hours and those pro bono hours and various ways, it wasn't until a number of years later where I realized, actually, particularly as an independent coach, I would love the validation that we don't get as self-employed coaches that we would have gotten in our organizational lives, to say, you're doing a good job, you're on track here. This is what a good coach does, who's adding and deriving value in the systems and for the clients they're working with. And for me, that was it. And to continue the learning, as I said, and just the mixed offering that was available, the fact that the emphasis was on the hours of experience as much as it was the training hours, for me at that point in my journey, made the AC an attractive and a welcoming kind of place.
So your reassurance and the kind of ability to nurture and flourish in a learning mindset space, which is great. Super. And Victoria, what about for you?
It felt like decades ago, even though it hasn't actually been that long. But I felt, for me, it was, I was very, very fortunate. My coach was very open to the idea of me trying things out. And one of the things that he said to me early on was that I need to build a community. Being independent coach and leaving the corporate world, which I mentioned earlier, coming from organizations where I was managing 700 people to going to being by myself, and later on during COVID time where you're just working from home, is incredibly isolating. And even as an introvert, I found it a struggle not to be able to brainstorm ideas and just cross-validate that what I was thinking about or working on was actually the best approach. And AC, EMCC both gave me that, to be able to just jump on calls and have so many members available activities that you can just network and have a what do they call them? Community calls, regional calls, and just coffee and tea sort of calls that you can just go, you know what? I just wanted to see another lovely human being who also understand what I do, who can also be experiencing some of the same challenges I'm having that all my clients are bringing to me. And how do you do that? Oh, this is how you did it. Oh, this region has all these specific nuances that I wasn't aware of. And so for me, that learning was incredible. And to feel that I belong to a group of other professionals that is way ahead of me, as well as alongside me, that can just give me that cocoon of safety that allows me to grow and learn and challenge and try different things. So that was part of the reason why, even though there was a cost associated to both of them, and at the time I haven't chosen where I want to be accredited, I felt so loved that I thought, I'm just going to hang out here. and I could be hanging out with someone in Norway, someone in Switzerland, someone in Luxembourg. And it's just, now I have friends all around the world who does the same thing, but in a different way. And it's like I have extended families of families, and that's just really, really nice for me.
It goes back to the mission statement of all three of the main coaching organizations, that reference to a community, a society of coaches. And you've mentioned, both of you, the ways that a new coach should try and experience the organizations. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. But I want to add to your points also that the organizations are a great resource for learning some of the practical elements of either your coach education or what the reality of working as a coach, whether it's internally or even more so if you're a self-employed coach working outside of a professional organization, that the kind of practical instruction the bodies all offer. And I've experienced webinars and talks and small co-coaching forums and group discussions from all three of the coaching organizations, much more recently than both of you as a fairly newly qualified coach. And those had that wonderful benefit of teaching me something or offering me that pearl of wisdom that someone hadn't, or that I hadn't learned yet for myself, as well as, to your point, Victoria, of building a community and making those connections and starting to hang out virtually or in reality with people who were in a similar place. And for those who are transitioning from another career, that shouldn't be underestimated, because it is a very different way of working in any career transition. So I love that you've mentioned that. I think both of your tips have been wonderful. And I'll just go back there for a moment and ask you both any of your tips or kind of advice for how a coach can experience an organization. What are some of the best ways you've seen for someone to dip their toe into a particular organization's or all three's waters?
So all three of them has some activities that are provided for newcomers as well as for existing members to introduce other members. I would strongly encourage you having a look at their website, see what is available, what is interesting, and see if it is something that you can just try. There are some that actually charge you a very small fee as a non-member to just try out different sessions. There are also ones that are completely free that you can just attend, and really make the most out of some of those breakout rooms and just ask questions. Just go, I'm starting out, I'm thinking of transitioning. What does that look like? I mean, it's a very nurturing environment. So, and if they are not nurturing you, then that's a red light, right? Hopefully you would not meet someone like that. But generally speaking, we've all been there. We've all done that. We've all got the t-shirt. So we're more than happy to pass it forward. Like what Ina was saying about that journey. By the time you've carried so many tools in your backpack, you're quite happy to just share some of those tools. And it's very joyful to be able to help other people. So come along to those breakouts. And if there is a local chapter ones, generally speaking, there's always some that is happening. So look out for those and say, oh, let me turn up and see if I like the type of members that is in my area. The number of times I've been to regional ones when I travel for work and seeing clients and then subsequently making contacts in the local area that would be a much better fit for my local clients, means that, there's more to share. This, the pie grows because you are also growing. And that to me is a very good way to test it out.
Fantastic. Ina, how about you? What can you recommend?
I'm smiling because your comment reminded me, Victoria, only this week I said within my network, I feel like we're a human Venn diagram, that there's points of intersection that we can, be generous with. We can share, ideas. We can share clients if we're over capacity. We can, and I think that's lovely. And, now when I'm maybe engaging and scoping out a piece of work, I might say, do I want to travel to this? But I know somebody there. Maybe I'll reach out to them, or I can't do this. But so I think that's a really nice, from a business development point of view, if nothing else, as well as the community, it's a really nice practical benefit to building out your Venn diagram.
Yeah, for sure. And the cost for the clients as well, right? If you have a local provider, carbon footprint, you don't have to fly there. They could have someone that would know their industry, their geography better. Why not? It's win-win for everyone.
You've both shared so much with us in terms of your experience with the organizations, but also about the maybe less immediately recognizable benefits that a coach can experience through the organizations. And certainly all three of them offer a wealth of resource, of assets, of a community. So coaches can really find that spiritual home and grow within their practice and explore new ideas as well as new opportunities. So what I'd love to do is finish by asking you each what your one pearl of wisdom for a new coach would be. So Victoria, let's start with you. What would you tell a new coach to help them on their journey?
I would encourage them to just have fun, experiment, and try new things. If none of this resonate with you, take nothing. If one thing, take one thing. Play with it. It's I'm very much into experiential point of view, right? You've got a whole pile of Lego of wisdom. Choose what you want. Choose your adventure, and there's no wrong way. So you develop your own way, and that would be your unique way of developing your practice. So don't be afraid because someone else is doing an amazing job doing this way, and you have to do it that way. No, you do it your way. Have fun with it.
I love how you're encouraging us to have fun, but also be true to ourselves and explore what's right for us. So that's a fantastic piece of advice. Ina, what would your pearl of wisdom be?
Yeah, I love that idea. That's why we call it a practice. I think it goes back to wherever we feel like we can be our authentic selves. Let's try and find those moments. And in our professional lives, what will allow us to do that as we continue to learn and grow? So where can you show up and be seen and recognized and celebrated for what you're bringing, whether that's in a breakout room, whether that's in a virtual coffee, whether that's in a learning event. So that's a personal one. But can I add a process one? Because
please.
I'm probably I'm less experiential and more analytical, I think. So we'll try and complement your insight, Victoria. Going back to what you said earlier is start the record keeping as a discipline.
Yes.
From the beginning. It makes life so much easier. So whether that's your coaching log, whether that's your CPD log, do it every 6 months while the applied learning is fresh, while you can capture those insights and while they're meaningful for you, and invest in supervision. So, those are my process pearls as well as a philosophical pearl.
Great to balance out the philosophical with the practical because both of them contribute to a coaching practice. Thank you both. In this episode, Victoria and Ina helped us understand more about the three main coaching bodies. They helped to position how you can find the right fit and both the practical and philosophical benefits of affiliating with a coaching organization. They shared many of the advantages, of which my favorite was the importance of a coaching organization for a community and how they can serve as a spiritual home to help us on our journey of development in terms of networking and building a practical community and really helping to support our skills. So Victoria, if people would like to learn more about your practice or get in touch, what's the best way for them to do so?
They can find me on any of those three membership profile, but I also have my own website, victorialiu.com. And also you can find all my information on my website. And I'm always open to new ideas and learning together and have fun together.
And Ina, how can people connect with you, please?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to connect with me there. And other than that, I have my own website, equinoxcoaching.ie, reflecting that ongoing balance, I think, that we're all seeking to have. So something from the natural world that I borrowed
And we'll include the ways to connect with you in the show notes. So thank you both so much for sharing so many pieces of wisdom on your experience with the organizations. I think this will be an excellent grounding for our listeners, whether they're new coaches or long-time coaches or just curious about the industry, to help them navigate what the various coaching organizations exist to do, but also some of the benefits that may not be immediately available by just reading up on them through websites. So thank you both so much for your time and being my guests today on this episode of Getting Started as a Coach.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope the audience also find it useful.
It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organizations, and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or explore our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. There, you can keep up to date with our latest podcast episodes, enjoy the wealth of digital learning offerings, and gain insights from our Coaching Perspectives magazine.